And while I'm not a huge advocate for specialized and only doing one sport, the reality is for football, these kids that are training with trainers, they're simply the best. They're head and shoulders above the kids who aren't working with trainers. And every once in a while, I experience and hear certain things and deal with certain kids that are playing ball. One of the things that needs to change, and I hear this more often than not, that high school coaches are either forbidding or asking their trainers not to train with a private trainer. And to me, that's just bananas. And I'd like to bring up a few things, and I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts on it. But the reality is, these kids like the Jack Cohens and the kids that have all these offers right now at such a young age and everything else, they're working with trainers. And what kind of coach tells a kid not to do something that's going to benefit their performance, like going to benefit their team, benefit their career, benefit their teammates? And look, I get it if it's close to season and you don't want to get a kid getting hurt. I mean, there are legitimate gripes and that sort of thing, but I've heard straight out, whether it's for, I don't know if it's ego reasons. Some of these guys are definitely egomaniacs, but like, I've heard straight out that high school coaches have specifically forbid kids to work with outside trainers. And you know who you are. Like, there are specific coaches and specific examples. And I'm not here to drop names, but that's something that has to change. I'm just being candid with you. That has to change. And it benefits the kids to work with a strength training coach, to work with James Brady. He's the best quarterback coach, one of the best in the country. You look at a kid that James Brady has had between 8 years old and 10 years old, and you measure up a 10-year-old kid who's never had QB training. That kid's 3-step drop, 5-step drop, if he even knows what they are and all the basics for QB fundamentals, are not going to be nearly as good as the other 10-year-olds. And guys, they're not doing it at 8 and 10 years old. They're doing it at 7 years old. And guess what? In Atlanta and Georgia and California and all these other places, they're doing it at 5, 6, 7 years old. So that's the reality of it. And we need more high school coaches to understand, look, you're not losing the kid. That trainer's not taking him and telling them to do different things than you might be doing as their high school coach. So let go. Encourage these kids to train with the private trainers. Some of these guys are doing it for $10 a session. It's not a money grab. It's not that the rich kids are training with the private trainers and they're getting better. It's not about the money, because I know guys at Revolution Athletics and Superior Athletics and a lot of these other places that are training a very large amount of kids for free who can't afford it. So again, high school coaches telling you, kid, don't train with a trainer, whether it's a running back coach, a strength coach, a quarterback coach, that's hurting us in Long Island. The culture has to change. The mentality has to change. The offers, you have these kids now. So the senior class is a group that a whole bunch of Long Island elite players that we coached for years in that senior class. And when I say we, I don't just mean Long Island elite. I mean the Kamal Roys of the world, the PSTs, the Longwood Youth Football League, the Northport Youth Football League, the Dix Hills Football League, the Uniondale Football League. I mean, I know guys at every single one of these organizations that at that age group, this senior class, they were passionate. The Tim Asbells, the Vinny Cesarinos, there's a ton of these guys. When I say us and I say we, that's who I mean. These guys have worked with these kids to raise the level of football. And some of these kids now that are getting offers, it amazes me. How long have we heard kids in lacrosse getting offers in like 6th grade? All right, that's cool. Kids in soccer getting offers in 7th grade. Okay, that's cool. That's not new news, right? The moment kids are getting offers in football, it's like, how are those kids getting offered? He's only in 8th grade, or he's only in 7th grade, or he's only a freshman in high school, or whatever it is. And that has to change. Like the 8th grader in New York that has offers. Did we know in Long Island that there are kids in 6th and 7th grade in Atlanta, Georgia, and across the rest of the country that have not 9 offers, but they have 15 or 20 offers? So that mentality has to change. Yes, they are allowed to get offers. Below 9th grade, pretty much all there aren't many restrictions below 9th grade. When you get in 9th grade, the formalities of recruiting start. But the reality is these coaches at colleges can offer kids at that age. And It's legitimate. Schiano said to a player that was just recently offered, he specifically said to him, this is a committable offer. If you commit to this right now, I take one scholarship off the 2026 class. So guys, again, it's just one more thing where we should be encouraging these kids to get offers. The local schools in New York should be offering these kids. The colleges. I can tell you from experience that the colleges, the Power 5 colleges, they're doing everything they possibly can to not lose those kids outside of their state. Are we doing the same thing in Long Island? Are we doing the same thing in New York? I don't know. And I'd love to hear your opinions on that. I think that whether or not they're being offered is one thing. Whether or not the Long Island universities and the Stony Brooks of the world and a lot of these other, the Syracuses of the world and all those other colleges, at the very least, they should know the talent as they start to work their way up and come through middle school and high school. Because guess what? At those Power 5 schools, they're doing it. And look, I realize not every school is a Power 5 school. Not every school is an LSU or a Georgia or whatever it is. And there are restrictions. But I'm simply saying that we got to do a better job from the youth level right through college to increase the level of football. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
631-672-3108 is the number if you want to talk to Gerald, Al, or obviously Benjamin Carey. We are talking to Long Island 495 Elite. Before we have, Gerald and Al, answer the question, Speedy, why don't you read a couple of things that some of the guys are saying right now?
Yes. Speaking of Tim Aspel, he actually had a comment. In my opinion, as long as kids are doing something physical, whether it's in one sport or 5, what's important? Less Xbox, more gym time. Carl Falk says
you could say what Jeff said, because some of the stuff that Jeff said was pretty interesting.
So I'll read Carl's too. So the outside trainers thing in high school coaches is about the trainers recruiting kids to certain schools. That is the trepidation of the high school coach. Jeff says the lacrosse example is a bad one. The Northeast is the only place lacrosse exists, and that's why they're recruiting there. And then Carl says, what D1 colleges are you talking about in New York? Buffalo, Syracuse? Are there any more? He wants to know.
All right. So, Al, what are your thoughts to what Ben said? And Gerald, then I'd like to hear your opinion as well.
I don't want to make it seem like we're saying you must go out and get outside training. We're just saying that outside training is not a bad or taboo, because it appears to be that's the opinion of some in Long Island. And we're just saying it's not that. Do you have to get that? No. I also don't want to kind of give the impression that we want to force parents to do these type of things. We still got to remember these are kids and we want to make the game fun. Okay. And they have to want to do it. But when you have a kid that wants to get extra help and extra training, we should not restrict them. I just wanted to bring that point out first. In regards to the schools in Long Island and New York, I think they do. And I'm going to throw my alma mater under the bus a little bit, Syracuse. I think they need to recruit New York, especially the metro New York area, a little bit better. I've made that known. There's a lot of good talent in this area, but they fall in love with the kids from Florida and other hot spots. And I just refuse to believe that if a kid has a particular zip code, they're going to be better in football. And I think that was one of the things that I've always kind of had a chip on my shoulder when I was coaching youth football, is I love to travel around with my little town team and go down to Florida, Texas, and all these other places where football is supposed to be so much better in New York. And we used to stick it to them. And it just came from just a lot of hard work, dedication, and having a lot of good parents behind you that was willing to put in the hours of training and everything that's needed to bring a team together. So I just want to let it be known that we look at zip codes and area codes like that's going to define a person, or just because they drink water from a different state, that's going to make them a better football player. That's not true. We have a lot of great talent in the state of New York. We have a lot of good football in Long Island. I've seen it personally. Why are we behind the other states? I don't know. That's a big question. I don't think we have enough time to delve into all of that. But some of it has to do with the structure of how New York State, they kind of hold us back. We start football later than the rest of the country. So therefore, and I'm speaking right now in particular with high school, when we start our football season, most of the other states have already started. They're already like 2 or 3 games ahead of us. So when we do play out-of-state games, a lot of times it's their 3rd game and it's only our 1st game. I'm just using that as an example to show you how the politics in the state of New York holds back. They're not really beneficial for helping the kids in football. So I think we have to make a decision, how important is football to us? Do we want it to be? Do we want New York to be a football state? Because we can be. There's a lot of love for football in New York. It's not just in the South or in the Midwest or on the West Coast. New Yorkers love football, and a lot of kids do as well.
Gerald, what are your thoughts to what Al said, and obviously what Ben has been really preaching and pushing here on Long Island?
I'm not going to reiterate Al, but a lot of stuff I'm in agreement with Al. As far as the training goes, I mean, I'm a high school coach, so I'm for the outside training. The landscape of football has changed in that aspect. I mean, when you get to the college level and the professional level and the technology that's out there today, so many things are advanced since the days that I played. So, as far as injuries and things like that, getting back from an injury, just dissecting the performance of an athlete, movements and all those kinds of things. As a high school coach, I'm for, kids getting trained. As a high school coach, if you don't have a staff on that knows speed, strength, and conditioning, you may need that. So not everybody can hire a guy that can do that. So having the outside support of a Revolution Athletics or some of the other ones that are doing it, I'm for those athletes. I want an athlete that's coming back and that's prepared and that is ready to play. And I can teach them the game of football and the schemes that we need to do. Do I spend time on speed, strength, and conditioning? Of course. You have to do things as a team. That's the camaraderie. That's the building of that. But the individual stuff, I'm not opposed to bringing trainers in or having my athletes go to trainers. I think it's beneficial all the way around. I think, there was a mention of, the recruiting of players to go to specific schools and things like that. That I'm not for. Doing it for those, doing for the intentions that are supposed to be done, to advance the athlete. I mean, when I was growing up, I did that stuff on my own. It was my own personal interest. Not everybody's like that. Some people need that guidance and they need the outlet to say, here's an opportunity or here's a platform to get bigger, stronger, faster. And we're offering those things now. So to prevent a kid, if you're not going to offer it, somebody's got to offer it and give that kid that opportunity. If all my high school players at my age were out doing speed shoots and strength conditioning and going to the gym and all that stuff, we would have all been that much better. But they just didn't have it at that time.
Carl, I love the mentality Al has, but there are zip codes that churn out unreal talent, no question. And then Effie Hominides, I don't know how it's pronounced. Great points. Us Long Islanders love football. And Jeff says Al makes great points, but the zip codes do matter.
For the amount of money that these colleges are making off these ball games, you're talking about $15 to $20 million for one ball game. Win, lose, or draw, these guys are bringing in that money, and the coaches making $9 or $10 million a year. It's just absolutely outrageous what these coaches are making in college football. Why shouldn't these young athletes get the money as well? So, Ben, I want to get into that with you because I am disgusted with some of the things that I've heard over the last couple of months by some of these coaches, the crybaby coaches in the NCAA. And everybody knows who I'm talking about. Mr. Bama over there crying. Everybody knows who I'm talking about. And I call him Mr. Bama. When they're winning and they're clobbering people, it's okay. When it comes to when you're losing and you're not doing the things, or you're not recruiting, or you are recruiting, your recruiting class isn't winning, you're crying and saying that teams are opening up their pockets like Texas A&M because they're the richest school.